Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pokemon Review Series. In this episode, we are going over what I consider to be one of the biggest disappointments in this game. However, that is Sableye. Now, Sableye is a Pokemon the devs have tried to buff in the past. Um, it's a game that a lot of players even forget all the time even exists in the game because he's rare, insignificant to the meta, and expensive. Uh, so honestly, all the information that I share here, a lot of it was new to me because I wasn't even aware of some of the stats on this guy. I wasn't. I had no. You asked me before today what Sableye's ingredient list was. I could not tell you. But we'll be getting to that because I cover every Pokemon in this game, even the ones that are arguably the worst investment you could possibly make. And I'll get into why that is the case with the Sableye. I wish he was done better because he's not really given that much of an opportunity in most Pokemon games. He always kind of sucks. He's got a little bit of potential in competitive Pokemon with his prankster ability, but even that's really niche. That's a whole different discussion. But yeah, he's still not good in Pokemon Sleep either, and there's lots of reasons for that. Now, let's get into it. Sableye's got the dark typing, which is interesting because honestly, I think he looks more like a ghost. But he is Ghost Dark in the base game, so both were reasonable options for them to put on him. And given that he's Ghost Dark, he's got dozing typing, more playing into the dark side, but Dark is usually good dozing. Ghost is usually dozing as well, so they kept him as dozing. He's a skill specialist. Single stage skill specialist, keep that in mind, with the Dream Shard Magnet S main skill, which if you don't know is one of the worst skills in the game. If you need Dream Shards, typically it's better to just run a stronger team, get more Dream Shards. These guys can output more Dream Shards, if you're checking the app enough, than what you can get from Snorlax Strength. But there's other benefits to having higher Snorlax strength aside from just the Dream Shards, and it's just an added bonus. You can also increase those Dream Shards with sub-skills like Dream Shard bonus and other things like that. It's a very, very flawed skill in fundamentally the way it works. And because this guy's a skill specialist that contributes that skill, he's not contributing as much through berries or ingredients. They got potential to contribute in ingredients and berries in other ways, but that relies on their speed stat. And what does this guy have for speed stat? An hour? That is slow. That is pretty slow. That's actually really, really slow, so that is bad. Now, even when looking at what he does well, and that is finding us Dream Shards, we find that he's actually a weaker option than the Swalot. Swalot is better than Sableye at what Sableye does for the variable one. I don't know how he compares if you rank him against the fixed value ones. Rain on X doesn't have a comparison for that right now. But overall, yeah, the Swalot's contributing more for the Dream Shard Magnet purpose. So the Sableye is just straight up worse by a pretty significant margin. The worst Swalots contribute about 0.3 procs more per day, which is a decent amount, but it can be up to like 0.4 more proc, almost a half, or over a half a proc a day, which does add up to be quite a difference if you're considering running it over the course of weeks. It's got that 6.8% skill trigger rate is pretty sizable, but once again, with a 1 hour speed, it still doesn't really cut it. Inventory this would be decent if he had evolutions, but a 16 inventory with 0 evolutions, that's not that great either. With a 1 hour speed, it's not going to be filling for quite some time, but it's still rough. So, I don't know. This guy's got a lot of stats working against him, and a lot of concepts working against him as well. 18.8% ingredient rate, that's decently high. It doesn't really matter so much on the skill specialist what their ingredient rate is, but if we want to consider their ingredients, let's take a look at that. What does the Sableye offer? Now, something very interesting is that at level 30, it's got 2 mushrooms. That's a pretty sizable proc for a non-ingredient specialist. I know the ingredient specialists that produce mushrooms, Quagsire and Gengar, have 4 and I believe 5 for Quagsire. It's either 4 or 5 for Quagsire. I believe it's 5 though. Mushrooms at level 30. That is more than double what this is. But if we compare it to other non-ingredient specialists, like the Primate, for instance, let's find. Also, what was Quagsire? Yeah, it is 5 on Quagsire. Just wanted to double check that. If we go to Primate, for example, Primate only has 1 at 30 and 2 at 60. So they try to give it a little bit more, but also, like I said, with that low of a speed, it's going to be proccing anything so slowly that the Primate's probably going to produce size. Like, neither of them are good at making mushrooms. Don't get me wrong. But this doesn't really mean he's going to be producing a lot of mushrooms. But what sort of synergy do these have is always a question we have, because maybe then it could supplement for a very powerful meal if it's got an interesting synergy on its ingredients list for preparation for future weeks. And unfortunately for the Sableye, things don't really get better. So it's got oil at its base, so that's really the primary one we're looking at. And even for supplementation purposes, the only meal that has oil cacao, or I guess there's oil cacao down here with Puge Power Soy Donuts. So you have the C ingredient is cacao, then I guess you could do a little bit something with that. But by that point in the game that you're looking at a level 60 Pokemon, you're not really going to have your eyes down below like even this line for most meals unless you're really playing heavily into berries, which if you're playing heavily into berries, then I guess there's some consideration here, but then you're probably not running skill specialists, or like this skill specialist specifically. So yeah, I guess there's this, but then there's also this, the Spore Mushroom Salad as well, for mushrooms in oil, which is in better proportions than what the Huge Power Soy Donuts are in, I think. Because Huge Power Soy Donuts would be 3-to-3, 1-to-1. And that is not a 1-to-1 ratio there, that is about a 2-to-1-ish. Meanwhile, the other one up here, we have about a 2-to-1 going down, but the mushrooms would be in a 5-to-1, which actually that's heavily in favor of the mushrooms, actually. But yeah, not very good ingredient list either on the Sableye, unfortunately. So it's really got nothing going for it. And why do I say it's the worst investment in the game when there are honestly worse Pokemon? I believe Persian I would consider to be worse. It gives less Dream Shards in a day. It's overall, I think it's got lower value output per day. Just because the Sableye has Wiki Berry, which is a stronger berry type than normal berry for dark. But yeah, what has it got going for it? Why is it the worst investment in the game? And really it comes down to the fact that this is a 16 pip Pokemon. It is expensive. He is rare. He is expensive. He's a single stage and a skill specialist, which we all know single stage skill specialists are one of the most expensive things to invest in, because if you're looking at getting a very meta relevant one, you're gonna be looking at a minimum of 6 skill seeds of investment, or on most of the skills, 5 to 6 depending on the skill. And the Sableye falls into that category of needing 6, with Dream Shard Magnet being a 7 level skill. Yeah, he's just very, very unfortunate because he really sucks. If you have one that's got phenomenal skills, if you've already made the mistake of spending biscuits on one to catch it, maybe catch one for the dex if you like to just fill the dex and you like to have the little green Pokeball next to each Pokemon to say that you caught one of each. Go for it, just to have one. But don't bother ever again. The only reason why I think I would ever catch him at this point, or even consider throwing a single biscuit his way, is that if he's shiny. Because, you know, I do think Sableye has a really awesome shiny. That green gem in the middle. I usually don't talk about the shinies in these videos, but I just have to shout out Sableye's shiny because I think it is an awesome shiny. Very similar in my feelings to Umbreon, honestly. But, yeah. 16 pips is not worth this guy. One of the worst Pokemon in the game. And even though he's better than some of the Pokemon that are worse than him, he's so much more expensive that I think he is a worse investment. So, unless things change, unless dark types as a whole might get a possible buff, we'll see. Unless Dream Shard Magnet gets a buff, I don't think this guy is ever going to have relevance unless the devs make a very intentional effort to buff him or a category that he falls into in some regard. So, if you've enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. As always, I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a nice day.